One thing that's on most everyone's minds these days, you see it anytime you turn on your TV or your radio or maybe pick up your news source, is the upcoming election. It's coming close, and a lot of people have questions. So when we have questions, we turn to those who know. And on the phone with me today from Dobson is Michella Huff, who's the Director of Elections for Surry County. Michella, good morning.
Yes, good morning.
There you are. Okay. now, on the phone with me now is Michella Huff, Director of Elections for Surry County. Sorry about that. I don't think I had quite all my buttons pushed there. All right. Michella, let's start with the basics. We appreciate you being with us to bring us this information. But let's start with the basics. In-person voting, traditional voting on November 3rd. Will all of the traditional polling sites around Surry County be open?
Yes, sir. All 24 polling places will be open on Election Day as normal from 6:30 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. So if you do choose to wait until Election Day, you absolutely may do so at your regular polling place.
Okay. Now, are there any changes planned this year? I know that folks are used to going to their traditional voting sites. Mm-hmm. Any different locations or any change in voting hours?
No. We did do some precinct consolidations, if you remember, back in January, and those were put into effect for the March 3rd primary. So where you voted, if you voted on Election Day on March 3rd, that will be your same precinct. So no changes in the way of polling places or times, 6:30 a.m. to 7:30 p.m.
Okay. Now, if someone is in line when the polls close, they'll still be allowed to vote. Is that not?
Yes. If you were standing in line at 7:30 and the chief judge announces the polls are closed, if you were in line, your name will be taken, and you will get to process and cast your ballot no matter how long it takes.
Okay. Now, speaking of lines, it's anticipated, this being a presidential election year, it's anticipated that the lines will be long. What advice can you give voters who may end up standing in line for what could be hours?
Yeah, Brack, this is tough. We work hard all year long to ensure we will not have lines on Election Day. But this year, it's going to be a little different. We plan and take as much action as possible to anticipate lines. But this year we know it's inevitable. Not only is it a presidential election, which always brings out large numbers of folks to vote, but we're in the middle of a pandemic. So unfortunately, we feel like you might have to be prepared to wait in line. The number one reason for a line this year is the social distancing measures that have to be in place for polling places. And we actually, out of the 24 we have 5 polling places that are less than 1,200 square feet. So, that in itself severely limits the number of voters in the voting enclosure because our poll workers have to be included in that maximum occupancy, the per 1,000-foot state mandate. So we ask that you be patient on Election Day and know that because of social distancing and the deep cleaning that we're going to try to do between each voter to ensure, their security at the voting booth, that's just going to take additional time. And also, we know a lot of times the voting place is a good place to catch up and see your neighbors, but we're asking folks to sort of keep to themselves in line, not chat, to keep things moving as safely as possible.
Okay, now that kind of dovetails into my next question. You mentioned social distancing guidelines, deep cleaning between voters. Will masks be required for voters?
Masks will not be required for voters. They will be available. We have them to give to any voter who does not have one. We will be asking every voter that does not have one if they would like one. But you do not have to wear a mask to vote. You will not be turned away if you choose not to. Although we do want to protect the poll workers and the voters from the virus and the spread as much as possible. And we're very lucky here in Surry County. We have EMS Director John Shelton. And John and I have met and we've discussed plans for the hazmat team of Surry County to do a deep disinfect cleaning at each polling place, which is a 2 to 3 hour process. And that's going to be for all 24 of our Election Day polling places. The hazmat team is going to be split up into 3 different teams. That's going to go countywide. They're going to hit every single polling place before 5 a.m. And they're going to disinfect each of those polling places. So when those polls open, they'll be as clean as possible. And then cleaning will be done throughout the day. One person at each of the 24 sites will only be assigned to clean all day long. It's not going to be a fun job. It's going to be a tough job. But they're going to clean. When you check in to vote at the laptop, you will be clean. It'll be cleaned there when you get up. When you go over to the booth to vote your paper ballot, it'll be cleaned after you leave that booth and put it into the DS200. So all those measures are going to be in place, for the safety of our voters. And we are so lucky here in Surry County to have John and this hazmat team because, not all counties in North Carolina have this. So we sincerely appreciate John for stepping up and doing this for us. But just know we will have masks available. We have secured 34,000 masks for our voters through the CARES Act funding. So masks will be available, but not required.
Okay. Now, besides patience and a smile, what do voters need to bring? what do voters need to bring with them to the polls to cast a vote?
Yeah. Patience at the polls is going to be the big one. But this year we're asking more than ever for the voter to plan their vote. Decide how you want to cast your ballot, in what manner you want to cast your ballot, by absentee, one-stop early voting, or election day. And once you've made that plan, study the candidates and be ready to mark your ballot to ensure accurate choices that you're prepared to make in casting your vote. And again, if you wish to wear a mask of your own, bring it. That's great. Or we'll be, happy to offer you one. And Brack, let me touch on one more thing that I had mentioned about the PPE.
Sure.
Not only will masks be provided and hand sanitizer, but also the state has purchased single-use pens for every voter to use, and they will use that pen and take that with them. So there'll be no germs with pens being used from previous voters. And the state is telling us, the State Board of Elections is telling us right now that those pens are going to act as a souvenir as well. In some form or fashion, they are going to say, I voted or my vote counts, because the stickers are probably not going to be as popular this year because of having to hand those to the voters. We're also going to have acrylic shields in place at every voter check-in, to separate the voter from the poll worker and aid in that protection for both. So we have a lot of other measures to make sure everyone is safe at the polls.
That it occurs to me before we go on. It occurs to me that putting on any election is a lot of work for you and your staff and volunteers. This has just been doubled and tripled, hasn't it, by this pandemic?
It really has. It is, we call it game day in our office, preparing for game day, and this is like none other. You're having to think of so many additional things that you hadn't had to have in the mix before.
Okay, now you mentioned early voting. Now, I'm an early voting fan because I have a weird schedule. Now, we're fortunate here in Surry County. We have several early voting sites. If you will, tell folks where they can go for early voting and the dates and the times, please. Sure.
And we hope that one-stop early voting this year more than ever will help us keep our lines down on on Election Day. So if you are like Brack and an advocate for one-stop early voting because it fits your crazy schedule, that's awesome. We're going to have many opportunities for you to take part in that. We do have 4 this year. There will be one at Mount Airy at the old Human Services building, which is behind Aldi. They're off 601 on State Street. Here in Dobson at the Board of Elections office, used to be Just Save Grocery Store. In Elkin this year, Elkin has changed. Instead of being at Surry Community College, we are going to be at the Elkin Rescue Squad on North Bridge Street. And then Pilot Mountain, we do have one stop back there. And for the first time, we're in Town Hall at the lower level off of West Main Street. And the hours will be the same for every location, Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. And then we are open 3 Saturdays this year. So we're open on the 17th of October and the 24th of October from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. And then that final last day of early one-stop voting, Saturday, October 31st, Halloween, and I know that's your dear wife's favorite day of the year.
It is. It absolutely is.
On Halloween, we will be open from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. And the only days we will be closed will be on Sundays. So this gives voters in Surry County 15 days to be able to participate in early voting at one of the one-stop sites. And remember, if you're not registered to vote, you can vote at the early voting site by registering and voting the same day. And remember, this is only at the early voting sites. You cannot do this on Election Day.
Okay.
So again, this gives you 15 days if you've not registered, because the deadline for voter registration this year is October the 9th. So if you miss that deadline, come to One Stop and we can get you registered and voted the same day. And Brack, let me touch on one more thing real quick about One Stop early voting.
Sure.
As always, we will have curbside voting available to those qualifying voters in need of assistance who cannot go inside the One Stop site or Election Day site. Curbside is there for our voters. Any voter that's unable to travel to the voting place, of age or physical disability, and physical barriers encountered at the voting place, if they're unable to enter that enclosure to vote in person without assistance, that voter will be allowed to vote in the vehicle. But remember, before that ballot is issued, the curbside voter must swear an oath affirming that they do qualify to use curbside voting. So this is a big bonus for many folks out there, but just know that you can't just pull up and do curbside voting because of lines or the potential exposure to COVID. You know, that's not going to be a reason, but we are going to have that for those that need it.
Okay, that's good information. And I know that's especially important to a lot of seniors.
Yes, sir.
Who have limited mobility. That's a great idea.
Yes, and we're also going to have 4 tents, one at each early voting site this year, too, that they can drive under and be out of the weather as well while they're processing and working to get that ballot voted. And
early voting is a great way to avoid the lines. I mean, honestly, depending on the time of day you go, you might be one of just a handful of people there.
Yeah, so if you avoid, we have a couple of peak times, of course. Lunchtime seems to be peak time. Right after 5 o'clock is usually a busy time. And then sometimes, you know, right between 8 and 9, we're very busy. But if you can avoid those times, you should be able to walk right in at either one of those. And no matter where you live in the county, you can vote at either of the 4 one-stops. Okay.
And I'm assuming a lot of the same precautions will be in effect.
Exactly. The very same measures with the masks, the sanitizer, the single-use pens, the disinfecting. Absolutely. Very same.
Okay. Now, let's turn to a topic that's getting a lot of attention right now.
Yeah.
Absentee ballots and voting by mail. Man, it is everywhere. And because of the pandemic, it's anticipated that a record number of people will vote absentee this year. How are you and your staff preparing for this?
Oh, wow. We were told pretty early on into this pandemic to be ready for a record-breaking absentee by mail year. And then each month as COVID continues and the election gets closer, it's just increasing. And Brack, I can tell you as of yesterday, we have a little over 2,200 absentee ballot request forms that have been received in Surry County. And for 2016, the entire period was 1,200. So we have still 6 weeks to go for the absentee process, and we've got that many. So, but we're happy about that. We're happy to receive them because it's such a safe way to vote, especially this year. And as of last week, the state has had over 300,000 throughout the 100 counties of North Carolina. So it's about 11 times the amount as it was in 2016. But North Carolina is fortunate. We are a no-excuse state, and that means that any registered voter, can request to receive and vote a ballot by mail. Now, a lot of talk in the media about vote by mail, it's a hot topic. And just know that vote by mail states do not give their voters a choice. So when you hear on the news vote by mail, just know that terminology might be different according to what state you live in. For us, we do not do vote by mail because that would mean none of our voters would have to request that ballot. They would automatically be mailed the ballot, and they would have no other alternatives in their process of voting. So we're lucky here that absentee is just one of 3 ways they can vote. And this entire process has so many checks and balances. Again, I'm only speaking from North Carolina, but they're very strict on the guidelines when it comes to that chain of custody of the ballot, the voted ballot. It's a really big deal. And therefore, unmanned ballot boxes, you're hearing a lot of that in the news as well, being able to drop your ballot in a ballot box. That's not allowed in North Carolina. That's because every person who votes an absentee ballot must return it by either the U.S. Postal Service or in person or by a near relative. And that near relative, if they're bringing that voted ballot into our office, they must sign a log with an affidavit stating their relationship to that voter. So there's a proven and consistent chain of custody. That's what's so very important about the absentee process. And real quick, a big plus for this year for the absentee by mail ballot, the state of North Carolina, the Board of Elections has created an online portal, and each absentee ballot now will have an intelligent mail barcode specific just to that voter. So if Brack Llewellyn decides to vote absentee by mail, you're going to have an intelligent mail barcode just on Brack Llewellyn's envelope that you receive, and the ballot, the container return envelope that comes back to our office will have the same barcode. Those are scanned by us here in the office. It automatically uploads to the portal so you can trace and track your ballot throughout the entire process, all the way to where it is presented at one of our 5 absentee ballot meetings by our Board of Elections. So very, I think that's very positive and a very big step forward in the way of anyone who might be skeptical of that process. And just know also, Brack, that any of our board meetings for our Board of Elections are open to the public, including those absentee meetings.
Wow. All those checks and balances, that's like something out of science fiction.
It truly is many, because North Carolina is so very strict on that chain of custody. And it's and I think for that reason, everyone can feel safe about voting absentee by mail if they so choose.
All right. Now, most of us, I have voted absentee in the past when I was away at college and stuff, but most of us have a little experience in this. Walk us through the process. How do you get an absentee ballot?
Sure. First, you need to request a request form. There's a few ways that you can request a request form, a little different from many other documents in our office, but you can call us. We'll mail you one. You can obtain one from our Surry County Board of Elections website or the North Carolina State Board of Elections website. There's a fillable PDF version, and then you can email us that, or you can print it off and fill it in, mail it, fax it, email it, or bring it in person. Once you do that, you return that completed absentee ballot request form, to our office in any of those manners. At that time, you have reserved yourself an absentee ballot by mail. The ballots will begin to be mailed this year on September the 4th, and the last day that you can request an absentee ballot by mail is October 27th. So that's exactly 1 week from Election Day. And please, we're asking everyone that does this year, don't tarry. When you get that ballot, that blank ballot back, quickly try to mark your ballot and turn around and get it right back in the mail to us, or whatever form you wish to hand deliver or mail, because the post office is telling us there could be a 10-day turnaround. So we want everyone to be prepared for that. And then once you receive your ballot, get it to us. We get the ballot here in our office and we scan it into the database. The ballot envelope container is inspected for any deficiencies by our staff here, not the ballot. At any time does that ballot get exposed or opened. It's sealed for our board. It's then placed in the locked boardroom until the next absentee meeting. Again, back to that strict chain of custody. And then at the absentee board meetings, again, we have 5 this year. There'll be 1 a week beginning on September 29th. Our 5-member Board of Elections then inspects the envelope again, and they approve or deny. If the ballot is approved, or the envelope is approved, it will be opened by the board, and then it is run through the DS200 tabulator, just like the DS200 tabulator that you put your paper ballot in at the polls. And at no time, I want people to know this as well, at no time are those votes made public to anyone. Even the board doesn't know how one voted. And then if by chance there was a deficiency and that the board has deemed that ballot container envelope denied, staff will then contact the voter via phone call, letter, or email to try to get those deficiencies corrected as soon as possible and issue them another ballot that they can vote. And completed absentee ballots cannot be faxed or emailed. They have to be mailed or hand-delivered. The only people that can email or fax us their vote is the military or overseas voters. But civilian absentees have to be mailed or hand-delivered. And again, I want to reiterate those deadlines. Your ballot, your absentee ballot, must be to our office by 5 p.m. on Election Day. If you mail it, it must be postmarked by November 3rd, and we receive in our office by Friday, November the 6th, by 5 p.m. But that if we receive it here on November the 6th and it doesn't have that November 3rd postmark, it will be invalid. So make sure that you physically watch that postal worker stamp it before they put it through their mail.
Wow. So, again, many more safeguards in place. Now, how much postage do I need to put on my absentee ballot?
Your absentee ballot coming back to us will be 55 cents. Going out, it's $1.22, but coming back, you will have to put 55 cents.
Okay, so that's an absolute bargain right there.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've covered getting the absentee ballot. Now, if someone chooses to bring an absentee ballot back to your office, it has to be during your regular business hours. Is that correct? It
does. Now, we will be here after 5. We already are, but we're from here on out. But yes, it does have to be between 8:15 a.m. and 5 p.m. here at the Board of Elections office in Dobson.
Okay, there's no drop slot or anything.
No, sir. Okay. No drop box. Sir.
Okay, good. I just wanted to clear that up. All right, we're kind of coming down to the wire here. Now, if voters need information about registration, any kind of voting, absentee, in person, or early voting, how's the best way to contact you and your staff?
Sure. Please call our office with any questions. We'll be happy to speak with you at 336-401-8225, or please email me at elections@co.surry.nc.us. We also are on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We update there daily, as well as our Surry County Board of Elections website.
All right. Speaking of social media, there's a lot of misinformation out there about voting and registration, all this sort of thing, and we want our listeners to get the facts. So how do we separate the facts from the rumors? What is the best, most accurate source for folks?
Sure. And always we are going to say here in Surry County that the most accurate information can be obtained from the North Carolina State Board of Elections directly, either by phone call to them or website, or by calling our office for sure. I guess first thing, I want to mention a few things that is circulating right now, that are causing our phones to ring a lot with questions. And number one, the multiple mailers that our citizens are receiving right now, they're coming from third parties. They're coming from both sides of the aisle. The forms are valid, but just know we have not sent them to you. If you have called our office and requested that absentee ballot form or that voter registration form, we will mail you one. if you have not, please know it has not come from us. We are in no way associated with any mass mailing or third-party mailing. So just know that. And if you have already submitted your absentee ballot request and you get those mailers, please know you're taken care of. But if you want to make certain before you fill that out and just send it in anyway, give us a call. We can pull your voter view up and make certain that you're taken care of. And also, a question we've got here lately a lot is there is a untruth out there that absentee ballots are not counted. We throw them away, and they are very much indeed counted. As we just talked about that chain of custody, it's a really big deal to us that they are safe and secure at all times because they are counted at each of those absentee ballot meetings and processed through the scanner. And then at the end of that period on Election Day, those will all be ran and tabulated just like the other votes on election night. So they do count. Also, voters don't realize that when you vote one stop, that you have actually voted absentee. One-stop early voting is a form of absentee voting. Any voting that's done before Election Day is classified as absentee voting. So that's something a lot of people don't know. And, of course, please don't hesitate to call our office about any of the information. If you have questions about the deadlines I've talked about, or if you're registered to vote, maybe you haven't voted in a while. All we need to do is get you a new voter registration form if you're inactive. Fill that out, and we can get you updated and activated within about 3 days. And remember, if you've not registered to vote by that October the 9th deadline, you can do it at one stop and vote the same day. And lastly, Brack, I just want to say that our Board of Election staff here in Surry County and our 5-member board, we all act in the best interest of Surry County voters, and we do it in a bipartisan manner. We spend a lot of time here to show that we're committed to conducting fair, honest, and impartial elections. So that's not just a tagline at the end of our email. We really, truly try that every day. And we're here for the voters. Please contact us. I know there's a lot of things out there that's confusing people daily, but don't hesitate to give us a call. We'll be happy to help you with your needs.
All right, I know that's a lot of information, folks. We have been recording this interview, and we'll rerun it and at our sister station, WPAQ, as well, to get the word out to as many people as possible. But you heard Michella. She and her staff, her board, everyone connected with the Board of Elections, takes every election very seriously, and every possible safeguard is in place to make sure that your vote counts. But we have to do our part, too. We have to plan our vote. We have to figure out how we're going to do it, and do it in as efficient and a safe and thorough manner as possible. It's a partnership. Yeah. And Brack, I want to say thank you so much to you and Kelly for doing this for us. I know this is a lot of airtime that you didn't have to put to this, but we appreciate how vested you are in your community as well. I think you said it at the beginning with me. What's your slogan there? An informed community is a strong community? That's what we're saying, yeah. So kudos to you all for taking these extra steps to think about the citizens and what's going through their minds right now to try to ease that. And thank you for giving us the opportunity to share our information with so many folks via you. Well, it's a pleasure to have you with us. Thank you for all this great information. And folks, Michella and her staff are there to help you in every way they can. And I think we are in great hands. Michella, thanks so much for your time today. Thank you, Brack. Have a great day. You too. Bye-bye. Michella Huff is Director of Elections for Surry County. A lot of information there, but think about that and plan your vote.